Hello, everyone, and welcome to our episode number 46 of the Vice Mind Fireside Chats. And I'm here with Alec Wells, Erika Nadu, and Brett Corcoran. And you're all really, really welcome. So, in the last episode, we spoke about how we can be better with ourselves, staying in reality with people around us and having the right people to get feedback from. And that really brought us to the subject of how important is actually still community. Or has the human race moved away and we don't need a community like anymore like we used to have in the old days in an old village? Or is the pandemic of people feeling lonely, isolated, depression actually linked to the fact that we don't have those communities anymore and we could benefit from building them again about and around us? So with that, I just wonder, what do you all think?
I'm going to jump straight in and put my cards on the table here and say it is the absence of village that causes the huge jarring sensation within us whenever we reach in and get that sensation of I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. I think a good lump of that comes from the fact that we're not in a small community where our value is seen and recognized and the people around us are part of a kind of small team that are working together for our survival. One of the reasons people originally lived to a moral code within their communities was because of the danger of being shunned by your community and left out on your own. So it was a huge survival factor in being part of your community. And we know that in the modern era, people like Bessel van der Kolk and others have said that in trauma, the sense of community, the sense of agency, taking steps to be within that group of people is one of the absolute key requirements to recovery. So putting my cards right out there, it's a massive problem, and we urgently need more communities for people to feel supported in and by.
It's really interesting. Before we started recording, I have a client who is just about to graduate college, right? He's gone through whatever. So he's talking about what it was like for him and how he wouldn't have been able to do it without his support circle, is what he said, right? Like he met a great group of friends that are there with him. He's got family at home and whatever. So I don't think that it's just proof to me that age, it doesn't matter what age you are. You need a village. You need a support system. You need people who you trust. You need people who are there to cheer you on and want the best for you at every age, at every phase of life. And I think that, Gabby, you use the word pandemic. It's interesting because sometimes the villages that we start off with are the ones that cause the most damage. And it causes us to then go through life not wanting another village because of the pain and disappointment that brought. So I don't know if that resonates with lots of people out there, but if it does, you're not alone. But the best part is you get to choose the new village. You get to choose where you want to wind up and who you want to put in place to support you. And it doesn't have to be a big village. It can just be a handful of people.
Community, I think, is really important. It's the people that you lean on when you need something, right? And then, look, they're there just to support you, no matter what it is. You can say, I got to do something at the house. What do you need, man? You need me to come over? I'll be there. And they're there just to help you. They're not looking for anything. They're just looking to spend time. They had the space. They're there for you. And just giving you a hand. There's something special about that. And even to the point where, what if something negative happens in life? When you have community, right? They know that something's going on and they tend to gather around and then they'll be checking in or coming over or inviting you over or whatever it may be. Community is so important. It's connection. It can, when you're down, it can bring you that smile. It's giving you just that support that I think I'll speak for myself that I really enjoy and love community, and having as many communities, because there's so many different types of communities too, because you could be a part of one and then it could be so different from the next, but each one serves a different piece or a different part. And for me, growing up, I tend to mix my communities together. I bring them all together and let see what happens when I bring them all together. And it's pretty cool how some people look at others like, wow, they get into conversations, and then it just, now the group grows and they make other connections. And then it's just good to see people connecting with other people and supporting each other, even if it's you do your trade. Like I do electric, right? I'm doing electric. What if I meet somebody, they needed a hand? So you go over and you give them a hand. They do something else. They come over and give me a hand when I need a hand. You're not looking to always for a payment or, right? Sometimes it's like, nah, I'm just here to support you, right? And there's something about that that I feel like I hope we don't lose that, because that's the part that sometimes when things are tight, there's people there to support you in those rough spots. And that feels really good. And then when things are tight with somebody else and you just want to support them in those positions. And it's a support system, right? So I really enjoy communities. I really enjoy people, connections, and just being a part of it. So
It's interesting that both you and Erica mentioned different communities. Erica more like changing and finding your own. And recently I was in a live conversation with somebody else, and they made the comment that if you're not happy in your village, go and find a village or create a village where you would be happy to raise a child and know that that child had all of the support that you felt was appropriate. And I guess in this modern era, one thing that we do have the ability to do is to find people who fit our village or fit our community, our values, our standards in a way that we never did have before. You know, I'm thinking like a little fishing village where somebody sort of runs away to the big town because they can't stand the claustrophobia of being in a place where everybody knows everybody's business. And we can do that. In this modern age, we can digitally run away and find our own village. But the risk is that we have lost that ability to connect in the way that you were just talking about, Brett, where we can bring others together. And for that, I think there needs to be places where people can come and test the waters and see what's available for them there and see if that's a fit without risk of being bought into a culture or anything like that. Because the world is different. There's lots of different ways of being, and finding our own village is probably the greatest gift that all of this technology has brought us.
You all mentioned a few points, which comes back to how we are structured nowadays as society, isn't it? Because if you think about it, what do we really do? It's all about the jobs. So where the job is coming up, we're going to go. And that could be miles away. So suddenly we're sitting in a big city, living in an apartment block where we don't know our neighbors. We don't know anyone in town. We're just a little dot between millions of people. We're not seen. Nobody sees what we're doing, which feels really isolating as well. You may have a partner who also works long hours, so you don't even meet anymore. You don't have quality time. You just run from job to job. You bring the kids to the school and back, and then forbid one gets sick. You don't even have anyone helping out. So it's almost like people have become so isolated in a sea of people that they're like lone warriors. Everything has to be done by themselves. And Brad, you said it beautifully. In a village, in a community, you have a helping hand, right? You have somebody turning around saying, look, I can help you out. I have time. And you feel somebody has your back, and that takes so much stress out. That's how you can actually even combat overwhelm, because somebody's there. Why do we get overwhelmed? Why are we even talking about work-life balance because we have to do it all on our own. I read an interesting article the other day. Work-life balance isn't that long around. That only has started since everything has gone so expensive that everybody has to go to work. It only really became a thing when women started having to work because one wage isn't enough anymore. Because beforehand, ladies didn't have to hold down a 40, 50-hour job while raising kids, cooking dinner, cleaning their house, and do everything. And it doesn't need to be the ladies. The men could stay at home and look after the kids and do the household and the washing, the whole lot. But one person was at home while now both are out of the house. And this is where the trouble starts. So before both partners had to work-life balance was not talked about because it wasn't an issue really. And then you probably still were able to find work in your home place. So you had grandparents who helped out, you had aunties, uncles. So this is this village idea where you actually have support and help, and times have changed. But how can we bring that back? And I like what you all said. We can actually create our own village. And go ahead, Erika.
No. So we're all in agreement about how important it is, right? We all have seen it firsthand in our own lives about having community around us. And I will say I am much different than Brett in the way that he communicates, how he loves community and people. I am not as eager to do that. So I'm more discerning, and my village might be a lot smaller than Brett's, but it's a personal thing, right? So I think I want to say that a village doesn't have to have multitudes of people. It could just be one other person a village makes, right? It's just starting with one other person. But so we're talking a lot about how important it is and the need that we all see in having it. So my question is, what makes it so hard for people to find a village or to create their own? What is it in us that maybe holds us back from either feeling like we deserve to be in a village, that we can be welcomed in a village? What is it that makes village and community scary for people that they're not actively seeking them out?
I'm going to share, and this was my part of a conversation that I had with Erika privately. And I've been single for a long time. I would like to have someone, I would like a relationship, but most of my community is online. I'm a member of Ecology, online community. I've got the KEC community, that's the Certificate in Embodied Coaching community, but it's all online. And the thing with the dating, the meeting, is, as Erika pointed out, was you've got to go outside. She is not going to come and knock on your door. Don't get me wrong, I know there's online dating and all that sort of stuff. And for me, and I think potentially a lot of people post lockdown, being outside and going to new places has become difficult. And I don't know if it can be completely assigned to lockdown. I think for me it can, because I fucking loved lockdown. I loved COVID. Gave me a real excuse not to be around people. If I saw someone coming and I veered and crossed to the other side of the road, that was perfectly socially acceptable. But it's what I'd been wanting to do for about 2 years beforehand. So big thumbs up to lockdown from me. But community requires some kind of engagement, especially if the worst were to come to the worst. I mean, we've seen it just recently. Portugal, Spain, France lost power for days on end. My online community would come crashing to a grinding halt, and there is nothing outside this door that I'm really connected to. Personally, there are things through my son, but I have no real physical, touchable, tangible community.
This is so interesting because I too was a big fan of social distancing. I was social distancing before it was a thing, so I get it. But this is important, I think, for people to understand the difference that you have to know yourself too, right? You have to know yourself well enough to know what it is that is going to work for you, right? So that you put yourself in uncomfortable situations just because you think you're supposed to. I personally have a certain threshold, emotional bandwidth of social energy battery that I have. And I'm very discerning about who I want to spend that with. And some people raise that battery and keep it charged all the time, and other people don't. So when I'm building my village, I'm very aware of that, and I build it around my needs. I think it's important for people to know that and understand that they can decide what's best for them and what's not. And because there's a fear there that being loneliness and having a fear of being lonely and feeling lonely can push you to do things that might not be good for you just because you're filling a space. So I think it's important to take some time and understand, what is it exactly that I need, and why am I doing this, and how is it going to work for me? Because village is only good if it's reciprocal, right? You put into it and you get out of it. And it's important to weigh the two.
Yeah, I think you raised a really important point because we're all different and we all have different needs, right? Some people need people around them all the time, others don't. But there's a big difference between loving aloneness and being isolated and lonely. I love having alone time. I really love it. But I can choose when I want to be alone, and I can choose to ring a friend. I have people around me online and physically here in town where I can go to. I actually really lucky because I have two really strong communities around me. But also I can choose to be alone when I need my time and I don't want to talk to anyone, which is a really nice mixture. The problem comes when the connection is lost. Because working the last 3 years doing one sessions, some of the most lonely people I've had as clients, they were married, right? They completely felt isolated because the connection was completely gone. There was no deep conversations anymore, nothing in common anymore. They had so grown apart, and it was almost harder for them than people like Alec who were single, because it seems to be more if you're single. But if you're in a marriage, you have certain expectations. You hope you have this connection with the partner. The partner lives with you in the house and there's nothing. It's almost harder in a way. So it's down to as well connection. How can we connect? How deep are the connections? It's, can we trust the other person? Do we know my little village has my back when something happens? And I think knowing that somebody has your back already keeps down the stress, and you feel mentally so much better. Your well-being is so much better, because if you're really lonely and you have the feeling, oh, if some adversity happens, nobody will have my back, you're stressed constantly. That's why loneliness is actually one of the biggest killers for heart attacks, because the cortisol level of people who feel constantly lonely is much higher than people who have community around them and know somebody has their back. And I wonder when people talk about doom scrolling on TikTok, and we talked about it in another conversation where people watch other people on lives, just even going about their daily base. Is this a replacement of, well, at least if I watch somebody else doing something in their house, I can feel like I have a community. I feel like I have somebody else there. Is it a kind of a compensation for that loneliness? And trying to get that feeling of there's some kind of village or friend or somebody.
There's a thing here as well that we haven't really mentioned, although we've slid around it a little bit, which is it's the postmodern or post-industrial revolution kind of society that we have been left with. There's documented evidence of human society going back 150,000 years, and none of them had multi-mega million member cities or were enslaved to a corporate machine where in fact we are just part of the product. Not only are we what buys the products, we're also what creates the products. And then we've got all of the advertising that drives us to think that we need the products. And this has never happened before, or at least not in our dubious human history as we're presented with it. So there needs to be something beyond where we are. And I'm going to get all doomy about the state of the modern world, but we are moving back towards geopolitical situations that we saw in the 80s. And as far as I remember, the 80s weren't that great. And we need something that is different. better and more and different, to use Erika's words, than these current societies and these current societal norms that we have. So that would be, if you wanted it, my closing thought.
Well, I'll say, for those out there who might be listening, to our one follower who might be listening, I'm just kidding. Don't, and I speak from experience because I do believe that there is this disappointment that travels with us from prior communities that have let us down, and a fear of being hurt again that leaves us not willing to be vulnerable to entering another village or community. But trust me when I tell you that there are multiple people who have also been disappointed with their prior communities that are looking for something new. So just discern, tread slowly and carefully, but be open to the fact that you can and will find the village that works for you, where you can be unapologetically yourself and be held in that space.
Brad, any closing?
That's a good point, Erica. It's sometimes you outgrow certain communities, right? So there may come a time where maybe you were let down, or what was, I always look at, all right, what was my role in that? Did I play a role in that? Or is it just that I've outgrown this one community? And so I take it to heart and I look at it and then I learn and I move forward and put whoever I am, I just put what I can into that next community or the other communities that I do have. And I just try to be as real and as connected that I can be while I'm there. Because I know others, that's what I feel from others. They're pretty connected while they're there. And that's sometimes when things don't work, sometimes somebody's going through a hard time and maybe they just need to be heard. So you got to look at that aspect too. Just ask the question, is everything okay? Maybe that's all that was needed. But so it is your self-exploration piece that I'd invite everybody to look at, because your community is a part of who you are. And are they upholding your vision or what you're looking to give out to others? So, Gabby, you were saying?
I was inviting you for your closing thoughts. So thank you very much, everyone. And for any of our listeners out there, if you don't know where to start and you do feel you would like community around you, contact us. Let's have a first chat. Let's have a first start and let's meet. Just leave us a message in the comments below. Details of us are down below as well. So just contact us and let's start a conversation. Let's start a community.